Welcome back. Well, not much movement which is taking place in terms of the indices today. So it is a lot about specific stocks which we've been discussing. We have a couple of metal stocks which are gaining. Motherson Sumi, after its numbers yesterday, is not seeing much respite. So that stock is down. And even Eicher Motors just about flat. It's recovered. I think Eicher should come up for you. So let's see how that stock is doing. Just about higher by around 1.2%, though the margins disappointed and were sub 30% for the first time since March 2016. But we have Manisha joining in to tell us what she's tracking from the commodity and the currency space now. Manisha.
Ekta, thank you so much for that. Well, it is really about the crude oil prices, which have been all over the place in sense of fundamentals and prices. Also, after nearly a percentage point of decline yesterday, we are trading 0.5% on the higher side right now. While on one side, it is about sanctions on Iran and now Venezuela also, and then the OPEC cuts, which have been supportive. On the other side, you have the U.S. production, which is on the higher side. The OPEC agreement to continue to cut output is something that Russia isn't clearly or totally in power of. So there are some uncertainties on that sense. And then, of course, it is the US and China trade talks on Thursday, Friday this week that the markets will keep an eye on. So it continues to keep the crude oil prices volatile. While we are still trading in a range, markets would want to know on where we are headed. And to help us understand that, we are now joined by Vikas Hallan of Moody's. Vikas, hi, good to have you. What is your sense, first of all, on the whole OPEC and Russia statements that we seem to be hearing right now? OPEC, Saudi Arabia especially, and Russia would want to include Russia and some members to, solidify the cartelization for a longer time. But we have seen Russia actually quite shrug it off. How are you reading into the, the vibes or the sentiment between the OPEC and Russia, that is?
Hi, Manisha. Yeah, good to be back. Indeed, Russia has been shrugging off OPEC for quite some time. But let's not forget, last time when OPEC cut production, Russia agreed to participate on those cuts. So this is a step forward from Russia. And if you think about effectiveness of a cartel, you need to have the major producers within the cartel. Otherwise, the cartel is not enough effective. So Russia joining the cartel serves its own purpose because it is one of the largest crude oil producers in the world. And if that results in price stabilization, then Russia joining OPEC, which effectively has already happened, but not formally so. So participating in production cuts is part of, is a key part of being part of OPEC. So now Russia becoming involved in OPEC on a formal basis, I think is just a next step. Whether that happens depends on how Russia sees itself in the next, 5 to 10 years, whether it wants to remain bound by formalities within OPEC or whether it wants to go more on an outside basis and continue to provide support. So that aspect of what Russia wants to do over the next 5 to 10 years will determine whether Russia joins OPEC or whether Russia stays as an outside member but continues to provide. Yeah.
So that would be interesting to watch clearly. But what is your sense on the crude oil prices? Because in India, or based on various reports, it perhaps is $65 to $70 per barrel for the Brent, which the markets are calculating in as an average for this year. Are you around those numbers as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have been around those numbers for quite a while. I mean, even when oil prices went up to 80 or even when oil prices fell significantly, we have been maintaining that range of $50 to $70 as a base for crude oil prices. The prices have moved. We've said it will remain volatile. The volatility has been a little bit muted over the last couple of months, but still volatile. And that is largely to do with not a lot of drivers coming in, but we expect that muted volatility may get a little bit louder. So we will see these events on the OPEC production cuts. We'll see the Iran sanctions appearing back in April, and therefore we will, start seeing the volatility back in the market. Let's not forget one aspect on the crude oil front is the demand growth. We think that there is a possibility that demand growth might just underwhelm, given how the weak economic sentiment is, and if the trade talks between China and U.S. do not resolve and the tariff goes up, then there would be further pressure on the demand side. So there are still a lot of drivers to consider over the next few months, and which will keep both of us busy.
Well, it would, and many other people as well. But Vikas, one quick final question. We are looking at the Brent and the WTI price. The Brent is commanding nearly $10 of a premium to the U.S. crude oil prices, and the reason is quite clear. The U.S. production is at record highs, while we are looking at lots of uncertainty into the Middle East and OPEC, etc. Do you see this really converging, or would you really stand with the $10 difference between both of these crude prices?
I think the crude oil prices will start converging as the infrastructure bottlenecks get resolved in U.S.
Okay.
But it will not be, as low as what we have seen in the past. There would still be difference between Brent and WTI, especially given that U.S. will continue to have oversupply, and you will have a different situation in Asia where there is a significant deficit. So that part, I don't see prices converging to the levels of a difference of $1 to $2. Maybe we'll stay at $5.
Sure.
Vikas, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us with that perspective. Manisha, thanks very much for joining in with that conversation. So that is Oil in Focus with Moody's. The market's down about 4.5 odd points or so. There isn't very much by way of incremental activity. The Bank Nifty is flat. The small cap index is down a little bit. Mid cap index is up a little bit. So it's absolutely directionless across the board. We take a very quick break, and as promised, we get you some earnings. JBM Auto reported a muted set of numbers for the quarter. We speak with the management on the other side. Stay tuned.